Welcome to the Forum, your way to keep up with state and community leaders, experts, and local business leaders. This is your chance to hear from and talk to people that affect your life right here in Rim Country. You can express your opinions by calling 474-2427. And remember, the comments and opinions of guests and callers are not necessarily the opinions of KMOG. Welcome to Rim Country Forum.
We are thankful it's a Thursday. Thanks for joining us here on the Forum this morning. Charlie Seraphin with you. For those of you listening around the country and around the world at KMOGcountry.com, welcome, and feel free to join the program later today. We're going to have an incredible program with a really interesting topic that Jim Ferris and I have talked about for months, and today is the day that we're finally going to launch it. Before we begin, we thank our sponsors, the Power of Fives, the Dana Law Group, Banner Health, Payson Medical Center, Pinnacle Propane, Realty Executives Arizona Territory, the Owens Law Firm, and Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration. And before we launch into our program, today's subject, as I mentioned it yesterday, is American exceptionalism, and I want you to think about that a little bit, and we'll take your calls, your questions, and your comments. But before we begin, and I welcome Jim into the studio, I wanted to talk about something that happened last night because I meant to call Mike this morning and have them talk about it on the morning show, and honestly, I just forgot, and then I walked into the studio and I remembered, and I thought that someone would have called in. But for those of you that were awake and alert last night and looking at the stars, which is something that we do fairly often here in Rim Country because we have such a beautiful night sky, Elon Musk has launched, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's 1,300 plus small satellites. And they are for internet connectivity. So, we're talking about, laying fiber optic cable and all that sort of thing. He's got a different approach to it, and it's going to be a satellite delivered internet service. Anyway, he launched all these small things, and they're flying in low orbit. So they're not as high as a traditional satellite. The FCC approved it, Space Administration approved it, and they're up in the sky. So last night, about 8:45, I'm up looking, and out of the southwest is coming what I thought was an airplane. And then right behind it, and in the sky, if you can imagine, about 3 inches or 4 inches behind it is another airplane. And then I look up, and behind that is another airplane and another one. I started counting them, so I called my wife. I said, "Come on, honey, you need to come and see this." And she thought, whatever. But she looked up, and there were about 40 of them. They were all flying in perfectly straight line and formation, and I thought they were aircraft at first. Then my mind wandered a little bit, and I didn't know what they were. But we went on the local Facebook page to dial in, and they were burning up the lines last night, and everyone said, it's Starbright, it's called, and it's these low altitude satellites that fly over, and they're just shining lights that look like they're 3 or 4 inches or 5 inches apart in a straight line. And there were about 40 of them. I lost count at some point, but it was really fascinating. And the reason I tell the story, and hopefully some of you saw it, and if you didn't, I'm not sure when we can look for them again, but people have been reporting UFOs around the country in Southern California and Phoenix and whatnot. They flew over Flagstaff last night, and somebody wrote in from Flagstaff and said, "I just saw them. They went over the lake," but kind of thing. But the point of the story is that Elon Musk was born in South Africa. And he could live, he's got, hundreds of billions of dollars. He could live, he's an engineer, brilliant guy, 49 years old, 7 children. He could live anywhere he wants and have citizenship wherever he wanted to. He could just buy his way in. And he chose the United States. So why did he choose the United States? And our program today is about that. It's because this is the most exceptional country in the history of humanity.
That's correct.
Okay. And so with that, we introduced Jim Ferris, and you probably know him as a town councilman and a wonderful town councilman, but we're not going to talk about town politics today. We're going to keep our discussion focused on the big picture, on America and what's going on in America and what has gone on in America and what a critical role America plays in the history of mankind. But as we always do, and I haven't done this with you on the air before, but I'm going to ask the question, where were you born?
I was born in Clinton, Iowa.
You were born in Clinton, Iowa.
Yeah, it was just across the river where we lived in Illinois. Small town, a little farming community. Grew up, did a lot of farm work as a kid growing up. My dad was a shop foreman for an international harvester dealer. So I was out in the country and hired out from fourth grade on. It seemed like I baled more hay and straw than any farm kid did.
And you've done a lot of interesting things in your life and your travels before you came to Payson. What are some of the highlights? What are some of the kinds of jobs that you held?
Well, when I was younger, I had a building partnership. There's a couple of geodesic domes in the area here. We built some geodesic domes, and then I got into banking and did from consumer loans to commercial real estate, the construction loans, and so forth. And for about a 9-year stretch, I was a locomotive engineer for the Union Pacific Railroad, crisscrossing back and forth across Illinois. And I went back, finished my degree, come down to Arizona, and I worked for about 9 years with the First Tee of Phoenix, which is a junior golf program for kids that teaches life skills through the game of golf. And that was probably the most rewarding experience I ever had, working with the kids, getting to know the families, and say it was just a wonderful experience. And then after I retired from there, and then I come up to Payson, I had to get out of the city. You can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy. So I come up here and absolutely no regrets. Love it.
And you taught for a little bit at Payson Christian School, yes?
Yeah, I taught 1 year, 5th grade at the Payson Christian School, and that was a good experience. It was a lot of work, and it's just too much work for a retiree.
Yeah, so now you're just retired and you just kind of slide through that town council stuff, but we're not going to talk about that. Let's go real quickly because I know somebody's been very patient. Good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line?
Hi, my name's Leo.
Hi, Leo.
I live out here in Geisela.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason I'm calling, basically, not so much about the topic, even though it's interesting, is I was driving home and turned on the radio or Trades and Sales and KMOG, and I heard somebody praying. And it just changed my whole day. Because generally you don't hear that on radio and TV or anywhere anymore. And I just wanted to thank that individual that said that prayer at the beginning of your program. I think that's the most awesome thing you guys could ever do. And I pray and I bless all you guys. You do a fantastic job down there.
Thank you, Leo. We appreciate you too. Thank you so much for the call.
That was Charlie Seraphin saying that prayer every morning, and I am too. I'm so grateful that he is doing that, and bringing God into the equation in our everyday life. I think that's great.
Well, the genesis of it's not about me. It's the genesis is we had a program and someone called in and we ended up talking about the power of prayer, and I believe in the power of prayer, and I think a lot of our listeners do. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of them. And I thought, you know what? If we believe in the power of prayer, what is a number one community issue right now? What's something that we can't fix but God can fix? And that's the drought. And we just really do need rain. And so I encourage everybody, not just for the couple of minutes before we start this program, but in your own lives and as you go about your business every day, and you go through your intentions and you thank God for your blessings and you ask Him for forgiveness for your sins, and you talk about your needs, to include that among them. Because the more of us that join together as a community to ask for rain, the more likely we are to have a relief from the drought. So that's what that's about. So this topic of American exceptionalism, and you were so excited about it when the first time we talked about it, which was months ago, and it's taken a while to get here to this program. But what's the genesis of your thinking on this?
Yeah, well, first I want to say I listen to Dennis Prager a lot. So a lot of the ideas, the concepts that I have, I've stolen. I've stolen from him. So I want to give
We say borrowed.
him a lot of
we
credit.
say borrowed. He wouldn't say stolen. He'd say borrowed.
But, we're talking about American exceptionalism. And, that exists. Americanism exists. Germanism doesn't. Brazilianism doesn't. Koreanism doesn't. And Russianism doesn't. This is unique to America. This is an idea. Even spell check allows for Americanism, but not for any other country. It's the greatest value system ever devised by man. No other country has ever been animated by such values and concepts as the American experiment had, ushered into this world, this earth. So American exceptionalism, you could say, is it a myth or a reality? Well, it's indeed a reality to those that believe it. But if you deny it, then clearly it doesn't exist. It's like, Christianity. If you believe in God, God exists. But if you're someone that doesn't, it's kind of irrelevant whether he exists or not. But if we as Americans, if we lose our belief that America is exceptional and is real, we are in danger of losing the soul of this country. And it revolves around the question of, is this country exceptional? And I definitely, it absolutely is. You go back, Abraham Lincoln once said that we shall nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope on earth. This would not be said about any other country. And as far as I know, no one says Sweden is the last best hope of earth, or Chile's the last best hope of earth. And definitely China's not the last best hope of earth. People don't say that in other countries, and they're not expected to. But we're losing our understanding of how unique America really is. So many of our founding fathers, and they wrote that this republic is dependent on a moral and religious people. And we are losing this distinction, or possibly we've already lost it. So we need to get back and reconsider what it is that makes this country tick, what's the heart of this country. And you can dismiss American exceptionalism as arrogant or foolish, chauvinistic, and many people in academia teach our children just this. But we need to get back and teach us here. And if we don't do it, if we don't teach us here, I always say too that George Bush at one time, George W. Bush said that people yearn for liberty. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think people yearn to be taken care of. But, liberty, the concept of liberty and what it means to our lives is something that I think needs to be taught. And I don't believe we're teaching that to our children and in our schools. And we're not grasping that appreciation that we need for what liberty really stands for. But, and you look at John Kennedy and his inaugural address in 1961 said, in the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it, and the glow from that fire can truly light the world. There's no other inaugural address of any other president, prime minister in this world that would say that our duty is to bring liberty to the world. And you look around the world, on how many different continents are there graveyards of our young boys that have sacrificed, given the full devotion. And on their tombstones. They fought for their country. They died for their country and for liberty. And no one else can say that. And we're not asked to give that full measure of devotion that they are, but we can at least honor their sacrifice by preserving the values of what makes America exceptional. And so I just think we have this notion of a moral obligation to the rest of humanity. We were blessed by God, or by nature, or by luck, or by founders, that we should share and spread this to others. No other group has had this as part of their DNA. And so, to dismiss this here is leading to the path that we're going to lose this appreciation of what America, what that idea is. America is not a geographic region. America is an idea, and we can't lose the idea and the founding of that idea that created such a great nation. It was Barack Obama once was asked by a journalist in Strasbourg if he believed in American exceptionalism, and his answer was, "Yeah, I believe in American exceptionalism, just as I suspect the Brits believe in British exceptionalism, and the Greeks believe in Greece exceptionalism. But the truth is, they don't believe in their own exceptionalism. That's the point. If everybody believes in their own exceptionalism, then there is no exceptionalism. If everybody gets a trophy, nobody gets a trophy. If everyone's special, nobody's special. Other countries don't believe they have a role in shaping the world and advancing the concept of freedom and liberty and free markets. We do, or some of us do. Increasingly, more of us wish that we would shrink from this noble goal. They view the United States as being a lot of them just view us as being a destructive force, as China or any other despotic country. I think this is wrong, and not honoring what and not recognizing and appreciating what this American experiment has been from its beginning. And the other thing that is unique to us is becoming an American. You don't become a Spaniard or a Japanese or a German when you become a citizen of those countries. You become a citizen, but you don't become a Japanese. You never become a Japanese. If you become a citizen of India, you become an Indian citizen, but you'll never be considered an Indian. When people migrate to the United States of America and take that oath of citizenship, they are regarded as 100% American. This is unique to the United States of America. And we don't give a hoot, where you come from, or if you have an accent, or what your color is, you're an American.
That's Jim Ferris. We're talking about American exceptionalism, and we invite you to join the conversation. There's some real complexities to the topic. We're going to explore some of those when we return. Phone number is 474-2427. The line is open right now. It's the Rim Country Forum on KMOG, broadcasting from Payson, Arizona. Charlie Seraphin, your host, along with Jim Ferris. And today we're talking about American exceptionalism, something that is being attacked or pushed aside in a lot of academic institutions, something that a lot of people take for granted and don't really understand. And so we want to get into sort of the meat of what it is and why it is. And if you have a point of view, if we strike a nerve at all, you're welcome to participate in the program. 474-2427. One of the challenges, Jim, is that liberty and freedom allow for variant points of view. Okay,
Yeah.
so and this is one of the few places on the globe where you really can stand up and say, no, I totally disagree, regardless of what it is that it's being talked about. But in that freedom, it seems to me that a lot of people who are really critical of our country and talk about, America is a place of systemic racism, which is a lie. I know in my own life, you can only see what you can see and experience what you experience. And I know there's some really bad things that happen, and I know there are a lot of bad things historically that have happened, but that's a lie, because as a country, that's not who we are, and it's not what we represent. But the same people who are critical of American exceptionalism are the people who take advantage of the system that we have to be able to be critical, to have to express their thoughts. And that's the great irony of it all. Because if you're in China and you say, I think communism sucks, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, your social rating will go down.
Yeah, you're going to be ostracized immediately, and if you're vocal enough, pretty soon your neighbors will wonder where you went because you're not around anymore.
Yeah.
So
back in the '60s, there was a planned march that the Nazis were going to have in Skokie, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. And why Skokie is because a lot of the Holocaust survivors and their families lived in Skokie, and they were going to rub that swastika in their faces. And Jewish groups and everybody else, back then, American Civil Liberties Union, they have a right to do that. And talk about hate speech. It doesn't get any worse than that. But they were allowed to do that. And it's, the cancel culture today, you were saying about people getting up and being able to say, criticize things. Well, people are losing their jobs over what they say if they criticize. This cancel culture is really scary to me. And it's got to stop. And then, mention about racism. Well, I don't know if you know, about 30 years ago, to the New York Times credit, they reported this year that there had been more people voluntarily, willfully migrating from Africa to the United States of America on their own. More people have migrated here on their own volition than what were brought over here in the hellhole of those slave ships. It is definitely a stain in our history, slavery. But if we're such a systemic, racist country, why do so many minority groups all around the world want to come to the United States if we're so oppressive of these people? Human experience is saying somebody's wrong here. And I just this racist stuff that it's going on. I mean, it is just beyond. And there's plenty of black leaders that have come out and spoke against this. People say, "Well, why doesn't someone?" They do, but they don't get a voice in any of the mainstream media. It's just being shut down.
It's frustrating. We used to say if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there, does it make a sound? That was one of the great mind questions. But you posed a different one this morning about a meteor.
Oh, yeah. If it was brought up that if a meteor hit the Earth and it wiped out only the United States, would the world be better off or worse off? And to me, there's no more better illustration to say that, we're not going to be better off. The world in recent years have been dominated by the United States of America. If we weren't here, would we rather China dominate the globe? Would we rather Russia Venezuela. Who do you think would be better? And when you look up the sum total of all good that has been done by this country, United States of America, you have to appreciate the exceptional and positive impact that this country has had on this world.
It seems that the critics of America and those people who can only find fault, not that there isn't fault. We can all criticize the government and the systems and big business and big pharma and big tech and all those things. There's a lot of room for criticism, and there are a lot of things that are wrong. But it seems that the people that are completely focused on that have blacked out history, all of what went into making America what it was, and a critical area. And we talk about this, and it comes up on the program fairly regularly, is education. And education was so sought after in the formative stages of our country. To be educated was a make or break. That was the difference. So we hear the stories of Lincoln studying by candlelight to read the books and after a hard day of work. And so many Americans did that. George Washington Carver, who worked so hard to get an education, to become something special, to rise up, which was the opportunity not afforded. That's why they came to America, because they didn't have that opportunity. You were born into a caste system. Your parents were if they were blacksmiths, then you were going to be a blacksmith. And if your parents were poor, migrant laborers, you're going to be a migrant laborer. You never had that opportunity. Now we have all the stories of people who have really grown up through this system, through hard work and through education and through determination and truth and honesty and value structured lives to become something great. And that's all lost. It's like, okay, and we have a whole generation, it seems, of people who take advantage of the opportunities that have been afforded to them, but they don't have appreciation for where those opportunities came from.
Yeah, I agree. And back to all the racist talk that is going on. Slavery was kind of ubiquitous to most of the world. It went on. But the question should be, who abolished slavery? We did. The Western civilization did. Of course, if you say anything about Western civilization and preserving it and so forth today, then you're accused of white supremacy or some other crazy
imperialism.
stuff. It's just unbelievable. But and people did work. So many people worked hard. They sought that education. They put in the effort. But our system allows that to happen. We've created this American experiment has allowed that to happen. And, a lot of people think, well, if someone's made it, they had some kind of privilege in doing it. No, they may have worked hard. They may have made good choices and had a vision and a dream, and they went for it. And the thing about some people, they've done things where they've made a lot of money. But in our system, our capitalistic system, nobody puts a gun to my head and say I have to go into this store or go buy this product. Or I have a choice to do that. And people that have made a lot of money, when people go and they buy that product or that service from them, that allows them to, gain wealth. They've done it in a free exchange. I mean, nobody goes out and trades down. In other words, if I wouldn't go out and pay $2,500 for a $1,500 car, nobody does that. If I pay the $2,500, I believe that I'm getting at least that $2,500 value for my car. So if someone sells it and they can make a profit at it, and I'm happy with the value I got out of it, that's capitalism. And we're both happy. And we've had those free choices to interact in these transactions, for what we believe our benefit was.
I'm going to give you a counterpoint. Okay? This is going to be our first disagreement of the morning. You say nobody does, somebody does, and the person or entity that does is the United States government. Because the government does go out and pay $2,500 for a $1,500 car.
Yeah.
The government does go out and pay $500 for a 1995 toilet seat. The government does that, and the whole system that we have evolved in terms of government, not Americans, not Americanism, not the God-fearing people who are the basis of the country, but the politicians, the political class, which was never a part of the Founding Fathers' ideas.
Absolutely.
They wanted a citizen government where you come in from the farm or you come in from the factory and you serve a term or two and then you go back to your job. But now we have these 30, 40, 50-year politicians who have been there and getting very personally wealthy, and the way they do it is by having alliances with the lobbyists who are representing somebody who's trying to sell the $1,500 car for $2,500, and we do it every day, and it goes on at every level from the national government. It's become like a pandemic. It comes down through the whole system.
It'd come right down into your local.
Right, comes right down into your local thing where the people are they cut deals to make themselves extra money, and ingratiate themselves to people that they probably shouldn't have a relationship with. But that's not about Americanism.
No,
so that's off topic.
Bringing government entities in is not the same as two, free citizens, negotiating their own exchange and something.
So we can't do a program on American exceptionalism like this unless we're going to come back at you with some recommendations and solutions. And we're going to do that. We'll take a little break. Again, if you have a question or a comment, or if you want to disagree with something you heard this morning, 474-2427. Good morning. Thank you for listening on a Thursday to the Rim Country Forum. Charlie Seraphin with you, along with Jim Ferris. We are talking about American exceptionalism today. And Jim, you wanted to talk about a concept of In God We Trust. What is the Trinity?
Well, the U.S. has a Trinity, just like Christianity has a Trinity. And it's on every coin, every banknote. We have E pluribus unum, liberty, and in God we trust. No other country has had those values as their foundation as the United States of America does. Every one of those is very special to us. We all understand liberty. It's not the equality bell, it's the liberty bell that we have. And liberty is something that I think needs to be taught and understood much more than what it is. But in God we trust. All our founding fathers, they've all made the comments that our republic is only good for a religious and moral people. It will not function and exist without that moral and religious underpinning. I do believe that the United States of America was founded under divine providence. And we've lost that. We don't have those values. Even when I was teaching, and maybe I was substituting in a junior, senior English, and you bring up something that would be a moral dilemma, something that you would think would spark conversation with the kids and have different opinions. And you would bring it up, and you look out, and their faces are just all glassed over. I just asked them to process values, and they just don't seem to be able to go.
Give us an example of one of those questions that you put out there.
I can't. I'm not going to be able to come up with it right away. But excuse me, I know that I just know that it's happened, and and it's just kind of frustrating. But everything's kind of a gray area anymore. Well, the one thing that people are taught is all about, their feelings. And you ask a public school class, high school class, how many of you believe that man is naturally good? And usually most hands will go up and go, yeah. Well, if you believe man is naturally good, then it's our society has created some kind of toxic poison that would cause them to behave badly. They're not responsible for it, because something's caused them. Where in a Christian education, you ask people about, how many believe that man is naturally good, and you'd like to think that very few, if any, hands would go up, because we know we are naturally a sinful being. These values need to be taught, and human nature, I think, is to default to more of a selfish behavior, but in a Christian, that you're accountable to God, you're accountable to a higher values and behavior, and if you're not accountable to God, then you better be accountable to what your government is. And I don't trust government. I trust my faith in my God.
So what's the solution? What can people do? I have an idea, but I'm interested in what you have to say, Jim. Where do we go with this? We know what's happened. We've seen the drift. There's nobody out there. I don't care if you're on the left or the right or in the middle, or if you're politically interested and active or not. It doesn't make any difference. Everybody's seen the drift in our country. We've drifted away from the basic principles upon which the country was founded, and we're moving into the secular zone.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
the one thing, I think it's been very detrimental for us to, this self-esteem movement, and it's all about your feelings. And I remember my daughter when she was a freshman in high school, and she was in trouble. She was sitting at, and she goes, "Well, you don't care about my feelings." And she was going to get, I remember grabbing her shoulders, setting her back down, and saying, I do care about your feelings, but I'm not going to coddle and nurture destructive and, ill-placed feelings. You got to look at there may be only 3 or 4 people in the world that really care about your feelings. Your parents, maybe someone really close to you, maybe your therapist, but they only care because they want you to
getting paid. Yeah, it's a job.
But the other 7 billion people on this earth, they don't care about your feelings, but they do care how you behave. Yeah. And behavior is one thing. I think we have a moral obligation to kind of don't let our feelings run away with us and be the moral barometer.
Right.
We need other values to pin.
We're going to talk about how you got your example is a good one. Let's go to the phones first. Good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is Don.
Hi, Don.
Hey, how are you?
Excellent. How about you?
Good. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
I believe heavily in American exceptionalism. I'm a disabled vet. I fought for my country, and would do so again if able to. And I have a couple of things. I saw something in the news yesterday. Spokesman Kirby for the Pentagon was talking about inclusiveness in the ranks of the military and how they wanted more black generals and leaders in the upper ranks of the military. And I found that to be offensive, because you don't just put people into positions of power because of color. And even Martin Luther King made a comment about that. About a person's color. Don't judge a person by the color of their skin. But in the military, it's the same as any job. You put the person of that has the right qualifications into those positions, not just because of. And so that just irritated me about our country and the way it's going, and how it brings us down in that our striving to be exceptional. And a lot of people don't realize that. Not too many people serve in the military as it is. But the president, Mr. Biden, made a proclamation about the National Day of Prayer, and was talking about the essential fight against racial injustice, child labor, infringement on the rights of disabled Americans, and talking about prayer as a daily practice, and also that it's our First Amendment right and Constitution protects that free speech and religious liberty for all Americans to pray. But at the same time, a lot of these democratic states that are on fire and constantly under attack from Antifa and BLM, they're shutting down prayer services. And then he also goes on to say that he talks about in his speech about National Day of Prayer, the pandemic, loss of lives and livelihoods, and reckoning of racial justice to the existential threat of climate change, that as Americans we can all pray about this, and then he quotes John Lewis, who I don't think have any respect for, about how we can change society for the better. But I think Martin Luther King would have been a better person to quote if he was going to choose that. But nowhere in his National Day of Prayer proclamation does he mention the word God at all. So it just kind of tells you where our leader, this current leader in this regime, is not even talking about God. And I was just listening to your previous conversation. No. I wanted to say that, and thank you guys for talking about what you're talking about.
No, thank you, Don, for listening, and thank you again for your service. We always appreciate your calls. 10 minutes until
Thanks,
10 o'clock. So the example that you gave was your daughter and her feelings. Yeah. To me, the crux of the matter is what parents and their children, and two-parent families and their children. We have so many one-parent families in America today. It's really the beginning of the underpinning of this whole system.
Absolutely. I mean, you go back in Scripture, too, and when God said to Abraham, through you all, what will be blessed? He didn't say nations. He didn't say individuals. He said families. And through the Script, family is a basic unit. And that unit is there to raise up and train up good, people that they have the behavior and the beliefs, and that would be honorable to the Word of God.
To educate them against their natural tendencies to be selfish.
The heart is deceptive.
Yeah.
So your feelings, just because you have feelings, doesn't mean that it's something that's positive and good. Feelings can be either good or bad. You need to nurture those things that are positive feelings.
Let's go back to the phone. Say good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line?
Good morning. This is Nettie.
Hi, Nettie.
My comment is to Jim. Jim, have you considered running for mayor? My husband and I find ourselves 100% in agreement with everything you say. And we've talked to you before, and we're really happy with you, and we wondered if you would consider bumping it up a little from what you're doing now.
I don't know about that. I'm just looking at whether to run for the town council again or not. I would like to think that we would get some good people out there, and I'm definitely considering that, but. We need good people out there to step up and be willing to run for some of these positions in the community, and even school board and other positions. we kind of a lot of times leave it for people that have activist agendas and not necessarily be there for the good of the community and with the school for the kids, as a whole. And I'm not saying we have bad people in these positions at all. But we do need people that will step up. And I'm not committing anything today.
And to be fair, I promised Jim we were not going to get into town politics and what's going on and all that stuff. We just really wanted to isolate this subject, which is it's just not talked about. It's not talked about anywhere nearly enough, and you really have to go. You have to go digging to engage people in the thought process of what is really exceptional about America and how did it get this way, and not just focus on the criticism of what's going on right now, because that's real easy. Yeah. It's real easy. You can look at any newscast and open any newspaper and go online to any website pretty much, and you can find all kinds of things that are just completely messed up because it's drifted and we're definitely off track. But the key is to create a plan for getting back on track. And the first part is recognizing the history, which you've gone through a lot of it today, of what created our country and what made Americanism what it is. Why isn't it Greekism or Britishism or whatever? Those things don't exist. So it was unique and it was special, and then it got off track. So what are the keys? And one of the keys that we've identified is family. Yeah, and family is critical.
Yeah, and it was designed to be exceptional. And back to what Don was saying about Americanism, or America doesn't have an ethnicity, it doesn't have a race, it doesn't have a religion, but it's an idea just the same. And so we've strived, and liberals back in the 60s, all about. Let's be colorblind. Let's integrate. Integration was the big thing, and now it seems like, I'll just say the leftists, they want to divide us back into groups, whether it be races or blood or ethnicity or something. And we can't allow ourselves to be divided into groups. We need to look at ourselves as being an American and adopting an American idea. And if people want to migrate to this country and do it right, that's fine. But I do think that migration without assimilation into these ideas is invasion.
Yeah. Then you have warring tribes. That's exactly what you have. 4 minutes until 10 o'clock. We're going to take one more break, and we'll come back and wrap it up. Our conversation this morning with Jim Ferris on American exceptionalism. Let's go back to the phone. Say good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line? Oh, that person. I know you. Just changed your mind. Didn't want to talk on the radio. We've got about a minute or so left, Jim. We haven't answered all the questions and concerns, but I think we certainly laid out the challenge and laid out the problem.
Yeah, and I do think a problem that we do have is this diversity, and diversity being kind of the gold standard. And we're going to run into problems if diversity trumps right and wrong. Diversity is more important than excellence. It just seems like when we go out and we want to have someone in a position, we want to have the best person. We don't want to go, well, what gender are they and what race? You want to have excellence in what you're pursuing.
No question. Good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line? Hello. Yep. Turn your radio down in the background there.
Michael?
There you are.
Are you there?
Yep, we're here.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody is taken in the grasp of thought that the population is changing. I mean, we're not reproducing people here. We have to bring people in to step ahead to fill in the gaps. And everybody has different cultures. But bottom line, America is America. And I truly believe that if these people feel our culture and grow with our culture and not make it advantageous to what they want, but support America, it'll be a better place.
There's some big ifs there.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. I appreciate your call. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for listening, and it won't be the last. We'll continue this conversation at a later date. Jim Ferris, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Charlie.
It was my pleasure. Want to thank our sponsors, Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration, the Owens Law Firm, Realty Executives Arizona Territory, Pinnacle Propane, Banner Health, Payson Medical Center, Dana Law Group, and the Power of Fives. Well, folks, you know what tomorrow is. Tomorrow's Friday. That means Common Sense Friday, so probably a continuation of this discussion and much more. Your homework assignment is to look around you and find examples of common sense or not common sense and share them with our audience tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Until then, Charlie Seraphin saying thank you. Have a beautiful day. God bless you. And you're listening to KMOG Payson, where it's 10 o'clock. And 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 where it's 10 o'clock.